Hello and welcome to the Beatport podcast. My name's High Class Filter, and for the next hour, I'll be your guide to the best in new bass music. My guest today is Southpoint co-founder KXVU. Since starting Southpoint in 2015, KXVU has built the label into an all-encompassing bass music brand with a varied release schedule, a forward-thinking social media presence, and a growing roster of DJs and producers centered around their hometown of Brighton. I spoke to KXVU about the importance of branding in today's music industry, how the Southpoint sound evolved, and his tips for taking music from a hobby into a full-time profession. Before we get into my interview with KXVU, I'm starting you off with a brand new track on Southpoint from Ali McKay and Eyes featuring Labs. This track's called Tribe.
Beatport podcast.
I life with my tribe, Ashanti, I do this for honor and pride. Spear in my hand, you don't want it on sight. Hunt a man down like a thief in the night. I life with my tribe, Ashanti, I do this for honor and pride. Spear in my hand, you don't want it on sight. Hunt a man down like a thief in the night. Come with your crew, come with your army. Gallop deep like the door with Malachi. Bow to your king, I'm the life of the party. Fear no man, nobody can harm me. Come with your crew, come with your army. Gallop deep like the door with Malachi. Bow to your king, I'm the life of the party. Fear no man, nobody can harm me. Nobody can harm me. Rolling with DDE energy. Don't call me a GG, cause we ain't G's in the streets. Man, I watch face like a timepiece. Now I'm going clear, they will put a slide piece. That's why I'm on a big girl ting. One of the greatest, I kill it, I get it, I win. It's the man finna, I win it, a bullet, I swing. Ain't Goliath with my stone and sling. This is the Genesis, let the game begin. I am the lion, line them up and firing. Sound the siren, more waves of Poseidon. I'm on the cloud, you're hiding. Over the towers, tiring. I could have tried this mileage. I put the heat and climb it. While you're trying to find it, I got the T and signed it. You better leave it, allow it. Took a man down to the ground. Out here chasing the cloud. Don't come here and get loud. We all came to get down to the champion sound. Run, took a man down to the ground. Out here chasing the cloud. Don't come here and get loud. We all came to get down to the champion sound. I life with my tribe, Ashanti, I do this for honor and pride. Spear in my hand, you don't want it on sight. Hunt a man down like a thief in the night. I life for my tribe, Ashanti, I do this for honor and pride. Spear in my hand, you don't want it on sight. Hunt a man down like a thief in the night. Come with your crew, come with your army. Gallop deep like the door with Malachi. Bow to your king, I'm the life of the party. Fear no man, nobody can harm me. Come with your crew, come with your army. Gallop deep like the door with Malachi. Bow to your king, I'm the life of the party. Fear no man, nobody can harm me.
But right now you're listening to the Beatport podcast with me, High Class Filter, and I'm joined by KXVU. How's it going?
I'm really good, mate. I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So, what's been going on?
So much is happening, essentially. Obviously, we've got Southpoint on a massive spiral upwards. I've just started my new day job, essentially, which is doing the breakfast show on Trickstar Radio down in Brighton. Kind of the last 4 to 5 months, I'd say, have just kind of been like a string of things happening. About 4 months ago, things just started going up and up and up and up, and then it was just kind of like, felt like my Instagram feed was just a string of just like, glad to announce this, I'm glad to announce that, I'm glad to announce this. Sorry to anyone who follows my Instagram feed. Tell me if I'm getting carried away with it.
I was reading a bit about Southpoint today before we came here, and I noticed that on the Southpoint website, on the bio, it said that you founded it because you wanted to help revive the bass scene in Brighton.
Yeah, entirely, man.
So tell me what you mean by that. Can you take us back to that time?
Yeah, okay.
And what was the scene like, and how did you first get things going with
Okay,
Southpoint?
cool. So I'll have to take you back a bit further to kind of make it tangible. Basically, I've been kind of doing this music stuff for nearly 11 years now. I'm 25 now. I played my first show in Brighton when I was 15. So I kind of came into Brighton's music scene when it was at its peak, in my opinion. You'd basically have like 4 or 5 300 to 400 capacity clubs, all with like bass music, be it drum and bass, be it bassline, be it garage, be it dubstep, which was the big one then. And all of them would sell out every week, Friday, Saturday, and Wednesday. There's a club that called Patterns now. It used to be called Audio. I remember being a support artist for Supercharged there multiple times, and they had Borgore there on a Wednesday, they had Funkcase there on a Wednesday, and it was packed. But what I found happened was I started to lose interest a bit. The Towie kind of phase and the Made in Chelsea phase kind of hit Brighton hard, and it pretty much changed the mentality of people who were coming, the students especially, that were coming to Brighton. Students were coming to Brighton before that for the music, and then it changed to the nightlife, which are very separate concepts. So people would come here because it was like one of the best places you could play as a DJ, or somewhere you wanted to have on your like tour listings. It was a booking you wanted to get. And then it just kind of dried up very, very quickly. Like a lot of the nights, a lot of the clubs ended up like rebranding and changing names because the events were kind of not very busy at all. And a lot of them went down a more kind of poppy route. And then my boy Josh, we kind of met up and had a chat about it. Originally there was 4 people involved, but we found we wanted to go down more of a grime bass route because that's what we were listening to at the time. We were like, we want to bring this back, we want to make this pop essentially. And I've known Bush Baby for a fair while. He'd been like knocking on my door for a while, being like, I've heard you're starting a label or whatever, please can you listen to this, see if you want to put it out? And I was like, yes, 100% I want to put it out. And it was a banger at the time. So we did 2 EPs after like getting everything set up, and Josh was pretty much reading up on how to run a label. So basically he's handled all of the administration side of it, and I basically concentrated on getting the tunes together, getting the music together. And from there pretty much we just started putting out releases. We put out 3 just from people we knew like around, and people we kind of made the connections with over the years between us. And then we put Southpoint Presents together, which was 16 tracks, and it was just from a range of people, and a lot of them were like people we hadn't worked with before, a lot of people we didn't know. But at that point we started to kind of go, look, there's so many people here but there's no community. There's so many people making tunes here but there's no like place we're all meeting up, or we're not doing all of this, all of that. And at that point, I just got the Southpoint show on Trickstar, and from there we kind of started getting people down to the show each week and getting like a regular hub together. And from there it's pretty much spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. We've tried to like stay on top of the genres, like kind of move around within all these different realms. We don't want to stick to one thing because we're both passionate about loads of different styles, and we want to just continue to keep it as varied as we possibly can. And I'd say there's a group of about 25 of the Brighton based collective who we all just meet up regularly. We're always just involved. We're a group of friends who are involved in Brighton's musical community. We've hit a point where we've got this musical community back on track, and that was our original aim, to kind of get the musical community back together, especially on electronic music.
So as you say, one of your aims with the label is nurturing talent from Brighton.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Most of your main roster of artists are based in Brighton as well.
Yeah, of course.
Do Brighton-based artists usually come to you with demos that are pretty much good to go, or how much of your time is spent building people up to their first release? Do you sometimes get things that are a little bit rough and you kind of guide people through the process?
I'd say some people come to us with stuff which is already at the point. This is why we brought out the introducing system originally. For those that don't know, we run a secondary page called Southpoint Introducing. And what we really wanted to do was, for one, give the artists who release with us normally an additional platform to put out singles every now and then, rather than just being about these massive EPs. Sometimes people want to put singles out. It's just, you don't want to have like massive projects every single time. But we also wanted to find a way of bringing new artists that weren't necessarily at their peak yet, but we wanted to find a way of bringing them into the label smoothly, so they slowly transition and start to become part of the group. Then they're on a collaboration, then they're on a remix, then suddenly they appear on a compilation, then suddenly they've got an EP about a year and a half later. I wouldn't necessarily say as much on the guidance on the production side of things, because I feel if you're involved in a musical community, you kind of pick that up as you go along. If you're actually interested in doing it like properly, you will find your way. You'll find your own style. You'll find your unique thing. Every now and then someone will say, what do you think of this? And I'll go, oh, I think you could add more to the rhythm on this. I think you could definitely do better with that or whatever. But I think it's more about the integration into the unit a lot of the time. And then people tend to get that kind of progressive energy from the people around them that are in the unit. And then everything has a Southpoint sound to it. Whatever genre it is, people are taking influence from other Southpoint artists. And from that, they get this overall kind of sound. No one can really describe it, but there's a kind of like energy or a kind of tone to stuff which comes through with Southpoint, which we don't really push on people. It just kind of tends to happen when you go through this kind of integration system.
Yeah, I mean, you do really like a really wide range of music on Southpoint. It's all bass music, but it's grime, garage, bassline, dubstep, funky, like bass house. How do you make sure that you keep things consistent, and how hard is it to keep all of those different fan bases engaged?
With a lot of it, it's just about the variation. So it's basically making people stumble upon things that they wouldn't necessarily have found otherwise. One trick we found with this is getting MCs that are primarily based around grime. We've managed to get them involved on bass tunes, and from that they've immediately got this additional fan base. Very, very similar to the way Bruce E was originally a grime MC, and then he got involved with bassline. His fan base skyrocketed, and from that he's now become really, really popular, and he's now back doing grime tunes. And because he's got the fan base there that love him, he now has that freedom to kind of move around genres a bit more and do what he would prefer to be doing. With our boys, I've found, with Razor especially, I've found the additional fan base he's gained from hosting bass nights a lot of the time. People have then gone and checked his music and been like, wow. And now he's kind of on that skyrocket platform doing more what he wants to do. I'd say that's the kind of way we do it with MCs. A lot of the time it's kind of, I'd say, yeah, setting up of collabs between people, remixes as well, just so you kind of get the cross-pollination, where you have people stumbling on other people that you wouldn't necessarily have heard before, and you go, I'm not really a bassline fan, but that bassline remix of that dubstep tune, or that funky remix of that grime tune really, really bangs. Then they end up going into that, and then they see a funky tune by us again. Again, it has that similar like tint, that similar sound to it. They'll go, oh, right, I'm going to listen to that one. I'd say that's kind of the way, just cross-pollinating the unit we have and keeping it as varied as possible so people don't know what to expect, so they more become fans of the overall package than just one genre.
So moving on to Southpoint as a brand.
Yeah.
It seems like the branding of Southpoint is something that you kind of spend a lot of time on. It
Yes.
seems quite well thought out. How important would you say the branding and kind of online presence, that side of it, is to running a label?
I think now it's the most important part. I really, really do. Like, I understand someone's going to turn around to me and go, no, the music's the most important part. It's it's a very, very important part. But a record label itself is a brand, if you know what I mean. It's not a musical entity in itself. It's a representation of the music, if that makes sense. So that you have to basically have a brand that is interesting enough to entice people into listening to the music. So realistically, the brand is the first thing people see. The music's the first thing people hear, but the brand is the first thing people see. And it's something that Josh is really, really hot on. Obviously, our designer, Callum, is very, very tight on the branding side of things, visually in regards to artwork and stuff like that. There's a common theme running through everything. There's a common idea that slowly moves on and slowly develops and slowly develops. Well, and you can follow the story all the way back because people like stories, people buy into stories. But yeah, I'd just say get your team together first. Get a group, maybe 3 or 4 people that understand money is not going to come anywhere near you for a long time. Pretty much we are all in-house. Everything we do, all of the mastering, all the videoing, all the videography, pretty much, bar a couple of outside bits, all the photography, all of the social media, all of the press releases, all of pretty much everything about our releases, all of our mail outs, we all do it all ourselves. So don't go to a service, learn how to do these things. 3 years ago, I couldn't master, I couldn't edit videos. I've literally just got hold of a camera myself, so I'm kind of learning to use that as well. I couldn't do the majority of this stuff, but now I know how to do it. I can also like kind of get paid off it for doing it for other people as well, and that pretty much funds me having the time to do the Southpoint stuff as like pushing my project as the main thing. Get a team of people you genuinely feel are in it for the long run and make a pact at the beginning. Look, we aren't going to be expecting any money from this for like 4 years. That's the harsh reality of it, is unless you're doing like events as well and you can kind of take a nice little like a chunk here and there, the best way to make money while running a label early so you have the means to carry on running the label is the main thing. Obviously it's not all about making money, it's about making the movements, but you need money. There's no two ways about it. You do need to get funding. Learn how to do all these things yourself. Anyone can get hold of the programs, even if you save up and buy them. Get hold of the equipment and the software you need to do mixing and mastering, to do these things, and to save you money in the long run. Learn how to do them yourselves. It may not sound amazing at first, but people can tell the progression very, very early on. Learn to do all these things yourselves, and then just kind of go, because people like to look back and see where you've come from. So if you're not amazing at the start, you'll become amazing if you're all learning how to do all these things, because every element about you is going to grow together, which if you look back at Southpoint, it's not been like a zoom, like a massive quick rise. It's been a very steady like movement upwards. Yeah. There's never been a dip. We haven't like lost a member of staff or someone's turned around and said, oh, that's going to cost like double as much now because I know you need me to do it. We've learned how to do it all ourselves, so we all are always on the up. Yeah. If that makes sense. But that's it. Basically, learn how to do things for yourselves. Don't go to agencies to do it for you. Learn how to do it all yourselves, and then you will just save so much time and effort in the long run, essentially.
Yeah. I think it is fair to say that you have achieved quite a lot in that fairly short amount of time that you've been running Southpoint. It sounds like your approach has really, really worked in terms of doing everything yourselves and like learning from the bottom up. Yeah. Is there anything that you would have changed from the way you approached it in the beginning?
It's a difficult question to answer because we are way ahead of where we thought we would be. We came into with the mindset where in 5 years we wanted to be where we are now. We're entering year 4 now. I don't really know how I could do it another way, if you know what I mean. Obviously, we've kind of done it the only way we've known how, which is just get on with it kind of thing. I feel what we've kind of got is so based around where we've all come from, the way we've done things, the whole family element of it, like the whole reason like Brighton's like musical community being a bit shattered at the time, and now that's back. That's the thing that's kind of driven us. So I don't think I would. No, I really don't think I would.
So would you say that your aim of bringing back the bass music scene in Brighton, have you started to work towards that? Is it something that you're kind of seeing the results already?
I'd say we've definitely contributed towards it. I think a lot of the promoters kind of got a little bit less nervous about moving into these genres because it's a very risky thing. Promoters, I hate doing events. That level of just constant fear in the back of your head that you're about to lose like $1.5 grand at the least. I can't deal with it, man. Like, thank the Lord for Ricky coming in and kind of taking control.
going back to your work and the fact that you've just gone full time.
Yeah.
That's obviously something that a lot of aspiring people in the music industry would be working towards or looking towards doing eventually, whether that's running a label or DJing or produce it. So how did you go about achieving that? What would be your tips to aspiring towards that?
Try to make as many friends as possible. For one, do favours for people. I've got a motto here that if everyone in the world owes you a favour, you can rule the world for a day. So do things for free. Whatever people say, do things for free for a while. And then go, look, I need to start charging a little bit for this just because I don't physically have the time to do it. For me, I found there's always someone that can do it for free or cheaper. So basically make people know your worth, and then they'll be willing to pay it. Don't just go, oh, I'm worth this, because people won't. They'll go to someone else. Another thing I'll say is there are 24 hours in a day. When I was in catering, on my breaks, on my train journeys to and from work, whenever I got a lift in, I was permanently on my phone just sorting stuff out, writing stuff, making lists of what I had to do when I get home. And then you're home for a lot of the time. It sounds horrible, but you can survive off like 6-7 hours sleep. 6-7 hours sleep is fine. You'll be a bit groggy for the first like 20 minutes, but then you'll wake up and be busy and know you've got to do stuff, and you'll find yourself waking up. Just make the most of all the time you have. I think it comes from catering for me. They kind of get taught this quite early, that always take something with you. In catering terms, it means if you're going to the fridge, take something that needs to go back into the fridge and then take something out. So you save yourself a journey. To kind of transfer that to music, just make sure you're like opening tabs while stuff is uploading. If you've got like 6 or 7 jobs you need to get done, work out the quickest way to do all of them in one go. So basically the one thing's going to be rendering, for instance, for that long. While that's rendering, do this. If it takes 5 minutes, do it now. Everyone has 5 minutes. I don't care who you are, every single person in the world has 5 minutes. The secondary thing on this, if you break anything down into enough sections, everything takes 5 minutes.
So time management is a big part of how you've managed to kind of make your side hustle into your full hustle.
Entirely is. You're gonna have a few tired days. You're gonna, and eventually, if you get to a point where you're ahead with everything, that's when you can have a rest. That's when you can kind of sit back and go, right, I'm gonna have today for myself. I'm gonna do nothing today. I have like days like that all the time. Get a calendar and put your deadlines into calendars, because you'll see that and go, oh, I've got to do it. Have it somewhere where you can permanently see it, even if it's like a physical one in front of you. I use a Google Sheet, which it's just like a calendar, but I use it in there. Every single day, I'll go into it. All my like show dates are in there. All of my like radio plans are in there. All of my release dates are in there. Everything I need to do for Southpoint's in there. Everything I need to do for all the different things I'm involved in, they go straight in there on the day they need to be done. So then when it gets to that day, the first thing I do is wake up and go, right, I can sort that out on the way to work. I can do that on the train back from work. I can do that bit on my break. I can do this, that, and then you find yourself making a plan. And what you tend to find when you do it like that is you're done double as quickly, because you know you've got to get it done. So you find time, you allocate a certain amount of time to do stuff.
I think that's, a really good approach, really good way of going about things. Thanks very much for coming on. So what can we expect from Southpoint in future? What's coming up?
Well, we've got Presents out now, and you can look forward to kicking off again in the 3rd week of January, I believe, which is a free release every week. You've got Mooney and Movement Presents, and that is a funky and garage compilation. There's some absolute bangers on there, I'm not going to lie, across funky and garage. A couple of newcomers. There's 2 new guys that I'd never heard of before this compilation, Groovar and Earthnut, and both of them have got such like cool, like choppy garage tunes on there, and both of them I was just like, wow. So yeah, we've got that. I've got an EP that's just dropped, Wakanda, which is Shield of Wakanda and Mbaku. That is out now via Articulate. And yeah, make sure you tune in to me on radio, on Trickstar Radio. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
New job. Well, thanks very much, man. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you, man. It's been awesome. Thank you, sir.
Beatport Podcast.
Thanks again to KXVU, and make sure you look out for all the upcoming Southpoint releases he mentioned during the interview. They're set to have a massive year in 2019. For the rest of the show, I'll be getting into the mix with some of my favourite bass releases from recent weeks. Starting off with this new school garage banger from Vital Techniques called Hypnotize.
Come under my umbrella. Come take banana, nana. Head up like bandana. Oh yeah, banana. Jump out the banana mera. Can we see in camera? Fly you down to Ibiza. Ah la la. Oh lo lo. Ah la la. Oh lo lo. Oh lo lo. Ah la la. Oh lo lo. Ah la la. As you know they see yourself again, feel free. As you know they see yourself again, feel free. Ah la la, say to the boy. Do da da, turn that music up. 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 So that when no sabi shooty, he be back up. Fine boy when no get money, he be back up. Arabata, urubutu it's gonna be it's a lebu malabata akalaba it's a bebe it's a lebu zumbi zumbi you know the phone on every day not to zumbi 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 you know the phone on every day not to do da da and that music up do da da and that music up.
This is a brand new track from Jamie Silk called Fuego, out now on his Space Cowboy EP. The whole EP is sick from start to finish, and I love the huge range of influences on Jamie's sound, from UK funky to trap to baile funk to dancehall. Go check it. been a great month for lovers of all things 140 BPM. So for the next few tracks, I'll be heading into some grime and dubstep. Starting you off with this from Chimpo on the remix for No Names. This is Dads and Mums featuring Rochi and Killer P.
Love and honour, blood and horror. In the hood playing cops and robbers, eating chips and doner with six and scholar. The old bill put it in for us. Jumped out the bush like Walla. Ripped and grabbed by the collar. Chucked in the bully van, see how they bully man. Trying to make it out of the squalor, get off us. When them man pop up, man get locked up. Two man are shot up, them man are on us. This is more than beef, and we'll be losing more than teeth. Look, I'm talking World War III. Grenades, handguns, military teams. Drones demolishing homes and streets. Man won't be able to call the police. Trying to restore the peace. Sat there as we mourn the deceased. How many more were deceived? Somebody call for machines. Everybody running around, gunning down anyone they see. Right now, everybody leave. Who's gonna make it in the belly of the beast? You might catch a machete in your fleece. So hot and sweaty in the east. Ever so messy, the heavies intervene. My goodness, when the semi got released, several enemies were deleted. Car it's hungry season. If it was you, I'd head for Sweden. They were thinking it all was a dream until they heard everybody screaming. Gangs and guns, kids selling bags of skunk. Where were their dads and mums? Man getting stabbed and punched. Come out a random pub, smash and run. You would have thought this was bags of fun. This is how the man them does. Gangs and guns, kids selling bags of skunk. Where were their dads and mums? Man getting stabbed and punched. Come out a random pub, smash and run. You would have thought this is bags of fun. This is how the man them does.
Yo, you see how the man them do them thing now, dog. Man not informed on themselves, and we don't give it the underworld code. You understand? I wrote you we feel about that, cause I don't understand what going with them ghetto you China. Them just do things and I set things and I put things out.
Check, me and Rochi still on we are reason about gangs and guns and a little program named Gang. But when we touch on the road, see the young guys, them in the business and them a bad man. Connect, kang. We are the wickedest, but all the senseless killing in England, kill a man sick of it. And the killer them a roll and them illiterate. Let me talk to them food, they and them idiots. None of them know already yet, let me tell them. I know the first time we left work on news at 10. Trevor McDonald no work there again, no they a killer, you ain't one of them. Don't make me rise my skin. Come here, so the shot of them ready to go for them. I made a couple brother them ready to up in them. Come here, so the couple brother them ready to up in them. Could have been a family, could have been friend, could have been South London or West End. Any boy violate me, I get leng. Me no want to up any one of them again, but any boy this killer man I get quick. Me a dopey, no dopey left. When me dopey the dopey, I left a dopey with the dopey. You can't tell me about shanks and guns, gangs and guns, more gun me a go fit. Me a big dog, them a puppy. And if you get away, then you're lucky. But no, them a little young ones up on the ends and circle it. Cause when they come back round, they come in with a bucky.
Gangs and guns, kids selling bags of skunk. Where were their dads and mums? Man getting stabbed and punched. Come out a random pub, smash and run. You would have thought this was bags of fun. This is how the man them does. Gangs and guns, kids selling bags of skunk. Where were their dads and mums? Man getting stabbed and punched. Come out a random pub, smash and run. You would have thought this is bags of fun. This is how the man them does.
Together. They're coming to get you.
The track coming up next is taken from one of this year's must-hear grime releases. It comes from Shy One and Quam's Spoons EP. This track's called Proper.
I don't care what they told ya, with bars on beats I'm colder. I take wins, I hold L's, I'm a grown up. I still grin, I feel well and I'm toned up. Man chat, I don't care what they told us. We were going okay when you showed up. Stop with the chatty man, fella, hold up. We don't care, I don't know why you chose us. I'm on a baseline taking a split step. Next man I'm talking and ain't seen shit yet. Why would I care what a teenage prick said? Bro, I ain't put money down on my crib yet. I hope nobody thinks I'm a big threat. No more guy on reckless. I'ma stick to the notes on my checklist. Pre the boxes on there and tick them standard. If it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me with that squalor. If it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me, I won't wanna. If it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me with that squalor. Said if it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me, I won't wanna. So you better miss me with a dead shit. Swear down, you're not a mission, you're a dead shit. Kick rocks, how do you think we got a friendship? You think you're on my legs and I'm offended. You better miss me with a dead shit. Swear down, you're not a mission, you're a dead shit. Kick rocks, how do you think we got a friendship? You think you're on my legs and I'm offended. Look, I can't hear what they're screaming. Trying to waste my time, they're dreaming. I Don't know what guys are achieving with all the wayward scheming. I tell them, man, I'm gonna pass, but thanks, and I walk off beaming. These times your name's in the gutter and my reputation's gleaming. When I do bits, I really do bits, you're there chatting and cheesing. I'm at an age where I can't watch face, don't care who's gassing or reaching. Miss me with a fake ratchet shit, I don't know who you're teaching. I just clocked, I'm still here, my bad, now I'm actually leaving. If it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me with that squalor. If it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me, I want wanna. If it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me with that squalor. Said if it ain't proper, don't bother. Don't holler me, I want wanna. So you better miss me with that dead shit. Swear down, you're not honest, you're a dead shit. Kick rocks, how do you think we've got a friendship? You think you're on my legs and I'm offended. You better miss me with a dead shit. Swear down, you're not honest, you're a dead shit. Kick rocks, how do you think we've got a friendship? You think you're on my legs and I'm offended. And that's the time we're in. I used to have time to waste. I still do have time to waste, but I'm much more aware that I am wasting it now. So I'm trying not to do that, essentially. You feel me?
That's all I got time for on today's show. I'm ending the podcast with another track from Southpoint. This is Fingerphobia, and it's taken from the latest EP from Bush Baby. My name's High Class Filter, and I'll be back very soon with another roundup of essential bass music and another very special guest. Catch you next time.
Beatport Podcast.
I guess I found peace in the dark.